What I'm going to be presenting today is the capability to utilize WMS and WFS services through the One Call Center, which is ultimately a method to link and access facility operator maps in all of the different services that are provided through the Gopher State One Call Center. I've got Kyle Souter here from our systems division, who is a GIS expert and is the lead in our mapping division out of Wisconsin with the system side of One Call Concepts. Kyle, did I introduce you correctly there?
Yeah, that's right, Adam.
Okay, thank you. Before we get started, I should probably explain to you who One Call Concepts is. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with us. One Call Concepts is a service provider that works with Gopher State One Call to operate the contact center for Gopher State One Call. We provide technology services, management services, creative services, and basically end-to-end solutions for interaction with the One Call Center. We also provide those services to 15 other states across the U.S. So for those of you who work in multiple states, you may have come across OCC in other areas. As part of our work with Gopher State One Call, we have developed tools to improve the experience for facility operators who maintain advanced GIS systems and have access to GIS divisions or mapping divisions in their companies that have a hosted service of various different line and feature data. And what I wanted to talk to you today about is specifically the WMS, which is a web map service, or WFS, which is a web feature service, and the way that those can be accessed through various different tools utilized when you're interacting with the One Call Center. One of the things that we'll touch on are security concerns, knowing that that is at the forefront when we talk about sharing facility operator data with any other company or recipient. We're going to talk about use cases for the WMS and WFS and how they can help to improve and enhance workflow. And we'll do an overview from creation to implementation with some sample screenshots of what this looks like in the real world in the different products that it can be utilized in. I'll also briefly touch on some of the alternate solutions that are available to utilities or facility operators that have limited access to map data, but still have enough that they want to seek some integration and be able to merge their data with the centers. So in essence, when we talk about a web map service and web feature service, I think we've got a lot of mapping experts in the room today, so most of you are probably familiar with these things. Kyle, do you want to give a quick rundown on what a web map service is and the differences between a WMS and a WFS?
Sure. So just real quick, a WMS is more of an image tile of any kind of web feature data that you might have. Whereas a WFS is the actual feature itself, where the actual geometry and feature attributes are actually transmitted over the service instead of just the image tile.
So in essence, with a web map service, the simplest form would be hosting centerline data, where in this case, the center line for the facilities that are underground are stored within the map service. The feature service can go further than that and can use color-coded identifiers for multiple different facility types. It can identify things like junction boxes or different trenches, different types of facilities, high pressure, low pressure, and things like that, with feature IDs that can help to provide additional insight when you're looking through the service. And I'll show you examples of all of this as we go forward. I do want to right away touch on security. The biggest thing I hear when we talk about facility operators sharing their underground line locations is concerns about security. How is the data going to be stored? Where is it going to be hosted? Who will have access to that data? And what security protocols are in place to protect that data? With a WMS and a WFS, this is one of the greatest advantages, because the facility operator continues to be the owner and holder of that data. They don't have to give anything to the center in order to complete this integration. They're simply providing a link that allows the center to interact with their map system. So the center isn't storing this data. This data is still only on the servers, controlled completely by the facility operator. It's accessed through programs offered by Gopher State One Call, such as LTM and IMAP, which I'll touch more on later. But access to those programs is already limited by logins and passwords. So you have already got complete control over who will be able to access that data and what they'll be able to see. If we utilize the ticket link or map link and display this data through either of those products, they are secured through an encrypted link, and that link is only ever sent to the facility operator. For those of you who aren't familiar with Ticket Link is a access point provided in tickets that are sent to facility operators. So when excavation's taking place and a facility operator is notified, they receive a link in that ticket, no matter what format it's sent to them in, that they can click to view the complete map for the work site. And they can see the area where the excavator has identified that they're going to be digging. They can see various different map layers, the center map, the Google map, as well as a Google satellite view. And in this location, we can actually integrate the map data that the facility operator is hosting using a WMS or WFS service. That link, again, is still only provided to the facility operator and anyone that they designate to receive their tickets. So it's still secure and it's still protected and only available to those users. The data that's hosted and where it's accessed is, again, completely in the control of the facility operator. So if they were to decide that they wanted to take it offline, they don't have to contact the center and ask us to pull it or destroy the data. They just take it offline. And when they break that connection to the WMS service, the data is no longer accessible through the center or through any of these features. So they really do maintain complete control from start to finish for the data that they're linking. So what are the values of this? When we look at integration, what we have found is we can greatly enhance the experience of users when they're screening tickets, when they're reviewing tickets to respond, when they're posting response, and when they're working tickets as a locator in the field. In essence, right now, if a facility operator has this data on hand, they have detailed maps that show all of the locations of their facilities and any other feature data that they're storing. They're stored in two different locations. That data is stored in their server, and the ticket data is stored on our servers. So if they want to access the map and they want to compare it to their own map data, they have to go back and forth between two locations. So there's a great opportunity for reducing time and improving that process if those two data sets are stored in a single location. So in essence, when you go into any of the places where you're looking at the maps created by Gopher State One Call, you're seeing your map as well as the center map. It provides an easy point of access for locators in the field. When they're receiving the ticket, now they click that link, they pull up the map, they've got the facility operator's data overlaid with that map data all at the same time. They don't have to go back and forth to multiple locations. They don't have to search because the map is already centered on the location that they're going to be locating where the work is taking place. And that data is updated in real time. Anytime that the facility operator makes changes, the data is updated the very next time somebody clicks the link or opens one of those programs. There's no need to send anything else to the center or update multiple different data sets. It's all right there and it's all available in real time. One of the things that we've seen it used for is screening, and I'll show you some examples of how that can be done. But with this data integrated into the view for the call center map, you can actually screen out tickets because you can see if your facilities are in direct conflict with the area where the work is taking place. Very easy to set up with the center. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. It's almost really as easy as 1, 2, 3 is just getting access. Uh, the steps basically are to publish the WMS or WFS on your system. So you've already got a GIS system, you've got the data that you want to see integrated into the center maps. All you have to do is publish a WMS or WFS service from your GIS program. You can select which data is going to be linked and what's going to be displayed with GSOC. And then you just need to provide that link to the center and tell them where you want to see it. You don't have to see it in all places. If you only want it to be displayed in locations that are behind a login and password, you can put it in LTM and IMAP or IFEdit as it's labeled here. If you want it to be linked and you want it to be sent to maybe a third-party locator who's going to also be receiving this information, you can add it on map URL, but those are all choices that you can make, and you can change those at any time. And at that point, we're live and it's available for you to start utilizing the data. Basically, once that's activated, and Kyle, feel free to jump in and if you want to talk about the technical side, but once that's activated, it's available in the locations that you've requested.
Yeah, that's right, Adam. So we basically do it by user, by district code, and essentially as soon as we enter that URL in, we can go in and pull some test tickets and make sure it's online. And after that, it's up to the user.
Yeah, and to that point, Kyle, it's a good point to bring up. It doesn't have to be across your entire database. You could choose to have this exclusive to a specific district code, a specific user set. Even if you have multiple different users in LTM, you don't have to give it to everybody. You could select individually who you want to have access to that. So you really do have complete control of who's going to have access and what they're going to see when they're logging into the system. We've talked about the different ways to utilize the system. So let's get to some screenshots so I can show you what it looks like in the field. So what you're seeing here is a view in LTM, which is Locator Ticket Management, which is available through the Gopher State One call center free of charge to any facility operator that wants access. And this facility operator has set up a WMS service or a web map service to display the centerline data for their facilities. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see my mouse, the blue line running on the south side of this property is the actual facility centerline data. The red box that surrounds the property is the excavation area as it was identified by the excavator or by the call center when processing a called in locate request. So they've provided this area as the work area for notification, but they've described that the work is taking place in the rear, left, and right sides of the property. So a quick view, looking at this data, you can easily see that the work is in the rear of the lot and the facility is in the front of the lot. So this is a ticket that somebody could status out as clear if they're comfortable with the accuracy of their data and no additional work is required. They didn't have to go to multiple places to do that screening. They saw it right when they logged in and got into LTM. In the next example here, this is one that's going to require likely a locate in the field or at least some additional information. You've got a sewer line running across the north side from east to west. And the work area, as you can see, is a route. And the route starts at the point labeled 1, goes to 2, to 3, and to 4. And the work is taking place in the area buffered around that route, which is everything within the red box. So in this case, you can see that the starting point of the excavation is very close to where the facility is located. And you can also see that the excavation area as described fully encompasses the facility or fully intersects the facility. So it's likely that additional responses is going to be required here. In the next example, we've got one that could be a flag to a facility operator that there's potentially a higher level of risk and potentially additional response that's required. In this case, you'll see a red box running north and south along Highway 49, and that's the area where the excavation is taking place. Again, in this case, it's a route between points 1 and 2. But in this case, there is not only a facility intersecting the work area close to the starting point, there's also a facility running parallel to the entire work site. And there's attribute data associated with these facilities Because this belongs to the facility operator, I'm not sure how to interpret it, but they've got 24-inch markings, which I can imagine are the diameter of the conduit or the facility. And then they've got various different markers along that facility. Maybe they're marking depth. They could be marking different things about that facility, the age or the type that it might be. And all that data is in one place. So maybe as a facility operator, I'm looking at this and I decide I need a watchdog on site because they're doing horizontal boring and they're going to be going right across a line that we've got at a depth that could be at risk. And then they're going to be running parallel to a line that could be at risk during that horizontal bore. So there's a lot of information all in one place that can now help the facility operators to determine what action needs to be taken. This can also be used to help to isolate a work area. So in this case, you've got a very small work area that you can see here where they're doing a small route in front of looks like a Rotary Club. And you can see in this case that the starting point for this route is right on top of or intersects a line. And you've got data, it looks like that could be telling you the depth of the facility. And if you're able to cross-reference that against the work that's described in the ticket, you can make determinations about what additional information you might need from an excavator to help you clear this, or how you need to respond to that ticket in the field, and also what resources you need to send out. So in this case, the work is taking place in a parking lot and the facility crosses the work site in the parking lot. Well, in the very next example, the work is taking place at a very busy intersection in Hennepin County. And as you can see on the map, there is a very high density of facilities in this location. So through the WFS, this user has identified that they've got facilities running all over in the road right-of-way in this area, crossing the road right-of-way. It looks like they've got different pedestals and connection points throughout this area. And as a facility operator looking at this ticket, I might be able to immediately identify that, this is a busy intersection. I'm right off of Highway 169 on Pioneer Trail. I'm probably going to need traffic control to be able to complete a locate in this area. This is a meet ticket in this case, so it might help you identify what resources you need to have at that meet and what kind of planning is going to need to be covered under that meet so that you can ultimately allocate your resources appropriately when the time comes to mark this area out in the field. If this was a mark ticket, again, you've got a lot of additional information here before you've even sent anyone out that can help you to make the decision about what the appropriate action is to take. This next example is in the ticket check. This is an access point in LTM where facility operators can post electronic positive response. And because they have this activated in LTM, they're also seeing the data when they're responding in ticket check. And there's a couple of different ways that this could affect the decision-making from a facility operator's perspective. It might affect the way that they look at a ticket for screening if they identify that their facilities are clear based on the description of work, or after a locate is complete, this might give them an extra opportunity to check themselves to make sure that, if they had multiple facility types, were multiple facility types listed as responded to. All of the different aspects of the process that they're going through with the one call center now have this data as that additional fail-safe that can help them to double check and make good decisions about how they're responding. The next place we talked about IMAP earlier, and that is the next location where you can host this data. IMAP is the tool that facility operators use to identify and create and manage their notification areas with the one call center. So every facility operator who is set up to receive notices from Gopher State One Call is going to log into IMAP. They're going to draw out usually a buffered area where they want to receive notifications. By integrating the WMS and WFS services into IMAP, the facility operators can now see where their actual facilities are with the center line data and the attribute data in reference to the notification areas that they've created. So when they're doing a cross check, they might see that new facilities have been added. And because it's being displayed in real time, those facilities that were added to their map data will show up, but maybe they notice that they haven't drawn in those areas for notification with Gopher State One call. And it's a quick cue that updates and changes are needed when they're in IMAP. And it's ultimately a way for them to cross-reference their data against the data that they've provided to the One Call Center. We talked about alternatives. Not everybody is going to have the ability to publish a WMS or WFS. If you have something as simple as a shapefile that contains your center line data, that is something that we can work with at the center. If you provide that shapefile, we can actually create a service link for you. We have a little bit of a limitation there, a pretty significant limitation actually, in that the data is static in that scenario. And if any changes are made, you have to remember to submit those updates to the One Call Center. Otherwise, your data will fall out of sync and you'll be working off of aged data. Other than that, everything else that we went through today can be accessed and can be utilized, even with OCC being the one hosting the service for you. Last but not least, we can also simply host the data as a KML centerline display. If there isn't a way for you to make the WMS WFS options work, or it's not something that you're interested in pursuing, you can simply provide a shape file and we'll build in that centerline data as an additional layer on your map. Some of the disadvantages that come with that are a limited display option for the color coding, and you obviously can't put features and identifiers in that scenario because you're strictly displaying centerline data. You can select different colors. That can get a little tricky because it is static. Whatever you choose is going to be the color unless a change is made. And sometimes there are areas where in a satellite view, contrast can be difficult with some of the colors you can choose. So there's some limitations there. It also limits the area that's displayed when you're in that centerline view. So in this example, you'll see the red area is the excavation site. The blue area, it's kind of faint in the bottom southwest corner here, going through the corner of the polygon is the notification area. That's the area where this facility operator has said they want to be notified on any tickets intersecting with this location. The yellow on top of that is the facility centerline data that's been provided. Because it's a KML display, we only show the facility within the area where it relates to the excavation. So you can tell based on the notification area that this clearly continues on to the south and to the northwest, but the display is only shown within 100 feet or so of the boundaries of the notification polygon. This could be preferable for some facility operators if you don't want the complete database displayed on every different access point and you only want to display what is relative to the excavation site. But for most, this is probably going to be a limitation. One of the things I didn't mention earlier that I should is that this data is all interactive. So anytime you're in any of these viewpoints, whether you're in LTM, IMAP, or in Ticket Link, you can pan around and zoom within the map, basically within the entire boundaries of the state. You can also change between map views. You can look at this with your data and the center data overlaid on the center map or on the Google map or on the Google satellite view. All of those are accessible. And again, it's fully interactive. So there's no limitation to how far you can go with the area that you're investigating when there's a notification. So we talked about how we can improve workflows by utilizing a WMS or WFS, how to set it up, and some alternatives in scenarios where it may not be the right solution for a facility operator. Ultimately, to start this process, it's one easy step to make, and that's just to contact the database department at Gopher State One Call. Any facility operator who wants to get access can reach out and talk to Jill or Caitlin in our database department, and they would be happy to get you set up or answer any questions that you might have. And with that, I will turn it over to anybody who might have questions for myself or Kyle.
Adam or Kyle, I got a question. What percentage of customers are actually using the WMS or WFS?
Very low right now. Kyle, I only know of a couple across the country who are utilizing it. It's a pretty new thing for us, and we haven't done a lot on the marketing side for it. We've kind of been in pilots, in essence, with a couple of members in Missouri and a couple of members in Minnesota. And now that it's kind of proven out and we know that we can set it up easily, we're more open to doing it for anybody that wants it. But it's pretty limited at the moment.
Yeah, if I had to throw a number out there, I'd say maybe 10 to 15 customers are sending us their links, and probably another 10 to 15 we're hosting for them.
And there's no additional cost, correct?
Correct.
This is Bob Vasquez. I got a question for you. Well, a couple of them actually.
Sure.
What are the options for handling mixed permission of data sets? 99% of my stuff is open. I'm in a municipality, but I got one layer that's restricted. How is that handled on the ticketing side? It sounds like you can handle it, but how do I mix the view, I guess, is the bigger deal on the end.
Kyle, is that one that you can address?
Yeah, sure. So the way I could think of that off the top of my head is we could probably would this be under two separate users, or would this be one user that would have access to both?
Probably a small group, I would think, but I mean, we could set it up any way we needed to if you needed to have it, based on the owners of the data sets.
I'm imagining that I'm assuming this is protected with a username and password, or is this protected with a token? We can do both.
Yeah, I'd be either way. I don't even have it published outside right now because it is a restricted data set. They have basically their own portal into the data.
Yeah, that's something that we could work with you directly on, setting up either a username and password or a token that resets every 14 to 21 days. We could do something like that. That wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, the ticketing boundary, that last example that Adam showed, would probably work for the most part on a lot of them. Yep. So if we could clip it back that way, that would actually be a method that we could probably use. I could probably talk them through that process, and it would probably be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the KML center line. You wouldn't have the instant updates and stuff like that as if you were hosting your own WMS, though.
Yeah, but we could do something similar with a WMS request, though, too. So. Okay.
Yeah, if you could probably limit whatever bounding box you have to whatever tiles that the system requests from you, and you can kind of limit the panning if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Barb was asking about when I had a discussion with her, was limiting the request to just the stuff that's related to the ticket.
Sure.
Another question I had was, all right, you've got this all set up. Can I access your WMS and your WFS for all the open data?
It's not ours. I think the generic answer to that is it belongs to the facility operators. So they would have to individually provide permission and access to it.
Understood. But if that was in place, can we do that?
If they gave permission to share that data, is that what you're asking?
Correct.
Yeah, I would think if they allowed us to share it, then absolutely, because it's as simple as passing on the links to you. So yeah.
Yeah, if each facility operator were to give us permission to display their facilities publicly, we could create a web map with all of them compiled into one, and you could have a somewhat nationwide sort of facility map of all the customers that gave us permission to do that.
Yeah, as a practical example, it would be really nice to be able to get at everybody's infrastructure that borders our municipality.
And it could be that, they may not want to let it go to a public access, but maybe they approve or authorize individual users. And I think to your point.
Yeah, you could set up an all login or a specialized login for that as well, I imagine.
Exactly. I think you'd be hard pressed to get many facility operators to want to share it just completely open. It's been difficult to find those that are open to sharing it. One of the other ideas that we've had for this, and this example that's on your screen right now is actually a perfect way to explain it, is when we have the centerline data and we've got it limited to the specific area where it intersects the excavation site, this could be really useful information for the excavator. And if multiple facilities stored that data and were willing to let this image be shared to the excavator, we could in essence give them an overview of what to expect when they're getting responses in the field, which provides a nice checkpoint if somebody posts a response that says clear no conflict, and they've got this map and they see this yellow line running right through the corner of the site and they know they're working there. That's a good indication that something's wrong and that they need to do additional follow-up. It's not a replacement for field locates, but it could provide additional information to the excavator. We have not had any takers on utilizing that feature at this point.
Yeah, and in no way is this a replacement for a field locate, and the locator should not use this as a reference point at all when locating a facility.
Well, as a reference point, as additional information to get them to the starting point.
Right, correct.
Adam, what do you believe that's holding excavator or utility companies back from using this as a tool for preventing damages rather than, like you said, it's a reference. What do you think the holdup is?
I think it varies, and I don't know that I can really speak to it. I know security has always been the biggest concern that I've heard. That broad sharing of data or sharing images of centerline data it poses security risks from various different angles. Even if you're isolating it, like in this case, to a specific site, it's not far-fetched that somebody could then compile all of these different sites from an area and piece it together to have a complete facility operator map. So, there's been a lot of different security concerns kicked around. That's been the most consistent that I've heard when it comes to sharing downstream with excavators. But beyond that, I'm sure that there's other difficulties as well. Probably concerns about excavators using that as an alternative to marking or having a remark done when needed. Beyond that, I'm not really in a good position to get into the details there.
Yeah, I think that security issue is not really. I mean, I can do that right now. I can just call in a locate and find out what's there. So that there is a hurdle that we got to get past, right? And how we get past that to reduce damages is I think key here.
I think, Adam, you've got 10 to 15 hosting and 10 to 15 using WFS. What have you heard from those 20 to 30 users in terms of security?
The users who I've gotten direct feedback from, I think that they're completely comfortable because of the login access and the way that they're using the data. They're not sharing it to anyone outside of their organizations, and security has not been a concern from them. And I've gotten nothing but positive feedback from those users. They get really excited about being able to overlay the data and the impact it has on their workflows. And then are you ready to launch this more broadly than just the pilot? Absolutely. At this stage, and Kyle, correct me, or actually, Kyle, I'll lean on you to talk about turnaround time, but we're open to anybody who wants to utilize this service. I wouldn't say no to anybody at this point. And Kyle, what do you think for turnaround time when somebody provides access?
If someone has a working link, I mean, we can put it on within an hour. I mean, if it requires additional testing or research, it all depends. If we have to do something special in terms of username, password, or token access, it could take a couple days or a week or two. But I mean, it's under a month for sure. But like if someone has a working public link or some shape files they want put up, and security is not a huge concern, we can do it within a couple of hours.
Challenge accepted. And remember, this meeting is over an hour long, so.
I think it's awesome, guys. Is there a way for security-wise, though, if you offer the location to the excavator, the data to the excavator, so they can only limit the zoom in so far, or just have it for the dig area, instead of the whole map being able to scroll back and forth like a utility would use it.
Yeah, the idea that we've been kicking around is that it would be specific to the site and a specific buffered surrounding area. One of the things that I think it can be valuable for is identifying what we like to call nearby facilities, where it's triggering a notification because the buffered area intersects the polygon, but the facility itself is outside of the excavation area. I think that's useful information for an excavator, and it's a good reminder and warning to an excavator not to cross outside of the area that they've submitted for notification. If you've got a pipeline that's just outside of where you're excavating, I think an excavator would like to know that. So, the way I've kind of pictured it is you can see everything inside the polygon and maybe a couple 100 feet outside, and that's it. You wouldn't be able to scroll around and see any additional facility data.
Adam?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Joe Rebelke. So this may be for Adam or for Kyle, but I appreciate the emphasis that you put on the security side of things. But in some of the conversations I've had with utilities, it seems like a great concern for them as well is the liability perspective, meaning the accuracy of the information they're provided. This might be a bit more of a look forward and maybe even tend to be related to what Justin was asking. But has anybody expressed any of that concern, or has that conversation been had about the accuracy of the information the utilities choosing to share?
No, that's definitely something that I've heard, and more so expressed as a concern that by providing this data, an excavator may consider it an alternative to waiting for marks in the field or getting a refresh done, because it is not intended to be a pinpoint accurate display of where the facilities are. And when you put it on a satellite view, it's easy for somebody to see that and misinterpret it that way. So that's definitely something I believe is a concern out there as well, especially when you might be looking at map data that's 15 years old, and there isn't a high confidence level in the accuracy of that map data to begin with.
And the
maybe you have to put a disclaimer on it somehow, or a watermark that says "Do not use for excavation or locating," or something like that.
In our particular instance, we added a metadata element related to quality.
Yeah, the number one limitation here is probably when it comes to the stitching together of aerial photography, because a facility might provide a WMS that is consistent across an area in terms of projection, and it could be accurate to a pinpoint accuracy. But when you overlay it on top of Google Maps, the way they stitch together their aerial photography might not be consistent across the entire area. So that's where a lot of the distortion can come from. And that varies with zoom level too.
That's why I brought up the zoom level. If you have it zoomed out like it is now, nobody would dare to dig anywhere close to that line.
So Adam, is it time to advertise?
I think it is. I think we're kind of past the proving ground at this point. And, with this presentation, if you'd asked me to do this 8-12 months ago, I might not have been ready to do something this broad. But I think we're at that point. In my opinion, there's nothing stopping us from making this available to anybody that wants to use it. We may not be ready on the excavator side. That would be an independent pilot of its own. But everything that we've covered today for the facility operator access points, yes.
I'm excited. I'm going to advertise it for you. I seriously want to get some of our clients on board, the ones that are using our GIS system, and let them know it's available at least. So,
well, I think it's a perfect pairing for that. If you're in the process of collecting this data and you're already building, a new database of accurate line locations, it's just the next step. It makes perfect sense to integrate it at this level.
It fits right in with our mold. And for damage prevention, it's perfect.
Yep.
I would point out we're kind of getting close to the point where we would want to move on. But Adam, we've got Dean Parker has raised his hand and would like to ask you a question. So Dean, if you're on board, shoot away.
Adam, I don't know, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Dean.
Okay. So getting back to Joe Ravelki's point, the one I unfortunately joined in the middle of this, but the one thing I did not hear you say is whether this information can be limited so that only the locator and not the excavator can see it, so that it would be available, for example, on LTM, but not necessarily become a part of the ticket for those facility operators who really didn't have a lot of confidence in their maps, at least at the outset.
Yes, Dean, we covered that at the beginning. And in essence, what's available today, what's ready right now, is specifically the viewpoints for the facility operators, not for the excavators. So this would be available for display in LTM. It would be available for display in MapLink, and it would be available in IMAP. Those are all locations that are only provided to the facility operators. The discussion on the excavator side was more of a future, a potential pilot or exploration in the future.
Adam, if I could, I'd like to offer just a thought that in Minnesota, the council's one of its driving points of interest is towards open data across the state and the publishing of open data standard, which places the liability from off the table by basically stating that the user assumes the liability function of using someone else's data. They've tried to clear it via that way. So that may actually be, if you will, a kind of approach we might want to think about going forward and for this particular effort. So just kind of a thought to throw out there that Minnesota is trying to move towards a situation where counties can freely share data between one another. And the assumption is, Bob's point, circling back to that, putting some level of quality control on it through a metadata tagging. So that might be some things to think about.
I appreciate that. The ultimate decision making for that would be over my head.
Sure.
I think that would be a discussion between Gopher State One Call and the facility operators who are providing the data. But as far as facilitating that goes, the infrastructure is there, but people have to be willing to share that data.
Yep.